To add a hyperlink to one of your tasks, so for example, if you got a document that you want to quickly reference for that task, like maybe deliverables that you need to send off, or when somebody calls in and says, hey, this document that you gave me, what's this about? Well, instead of searching through your files, if you have it linked to your task, you can just go ahead and open up that link that you have tied to your, well, in this case, let's put it in our indicator column. So if I want to go ahead and add a hyperlink to my project summary task, just go ahead and give it a right click and go down to hyperlink. By default, it says what existing file or web page do you want to link to? Well, it's going to be an existing file, and it says, okay, where do you want to look in? Click on the drop down arrow. It's going to be on the desktop, because on my desktop is in the exercises folder. When I double click, it's going to be my product meeting document. Double click on that, and there you go, there's a link. Now to go ahead and open up the link, just give it a right click, go down to hyperlink, and say open. And there we go. Gummy bears, yay! What's that have to do with Spiffy Software Training Manual? Nothing. So the hyperlink can open up any document. In any case, once you have it open, close out of it. Let's go ahead and come back down here to the taskbar, click on the project button to restore project, and then if I need to make any modifications to it, like when I hover over it, if I'm like, what the heck's that? In the pop-up it says that towards the end of the address, the name of the document, but what is that document about? Gummy bears. Then go ahead and right click, go down to hyperlink, and edit the hyperlink, and click on screen tip, and give yourself a bit more information when you hover over that link, like it's going to be about Gummy Bee. You know what I'm saying? Then go ahead and click OK. Click OK, so when you hover over it, there you go. You get the file name, product meeting, and then Gummy Bee underneath it. Now, you can do more than just hyperlinking to a document. You can right click and go down to hyperlink, and let's edit the hyperlink. And as it mentioned here, you can go to an existing file or web page. If you just come down here and type in your web page, like videotrainingpro.com, and then with the screen tip, we don't want Gummy Bee for that. We want video training website. Click OK, and then of course right click on it, go down to hyperlink, and open it up, and there it is. Close out. Let's restore the project window back up and right click, go down to hyperlink, to edit hyperlink, and you can learn more about this in my Word 2010 training videos about how you can go ahead and select places within the document, create a new document, do email addresses. In any case, there's the basics. To create a visual report, in other words a graphical representation of project's data as charts and tables in either Excel or Visio, let's say for those who don't understand project or don't have it installed on their computer, but they do have Excel or Visio, or maybe they don't want their data running across many pages, just come up here and click on the project tab, go to the reports group, and there it is, visual reports. Click on it. And then up at the top it says we've got a list of templates in Excel and Visio. Which one do you want to go ahead and use or see? I don't have Visio, so if I uncheck that, you've got 6 different categories. You can click on those categories to get more specific, or if you want to see all of them, click on the All tab just to see those Excel templates. And of course you can check that to see both of them. Let me go ahead and uncheck Visio. And then for my report, I want to go ahead and create a graphical representation of detailed cost flow on the project in Excel. And I think it's going to be this report right here, the budget cost report. When you select it, you can see over here that there's a sample preview of it. It's going to be in this shade of color. And then down below, it says you can select a level of usage data to include in the report. I want those column charts to be displayed in quarters. Okay, then just come down here and click View, and there you go. Let me come up here. If this field list is in the way because you can't see your chart, then just come up here and click on it to close out. And you can scroll down and see it, and it's a bit large, so I'm going to come down here in the status bar and click and drag the zoom slider over to the left so I can zoom out and see more of it. Cool. Now when it comes to customizing this visual report, which if you know anything about Excel, this is actually a pivot chart, because you can actually pivot between data by coming up here, and you can see where it says Tasks. Click on the drop down arrow and click on All, and then click to expand the Spiffy Software Training Manual, and you can see that it's made up of these different summary tasks, which of course are based upon their subtasks. But it's just showing the summary task, the phases here, if I want to be able to pick and choose what I want to see over in the chart here and not the entire project, as you can see here for quarter 3 and quarter 4, and the budget cost is a darker shade of blue for that quarter and the baseline cost is a lighter shade, and so on. If I don't want to see it for the entire project, then go ahead and select multiple items, uncheck the entire project, and come down here and say you just want to see maybe the research and the outline phase. Click OK. It updates and it says, well, for those phases, they were only worked on or to be completed as far as the budget goes in quarter 3. That is, we hope we have completed them, because as far as the actual costs go, if we do have something that needs to be reported for the actual and it didn't get bumped out in quarter 3 to quarter 4, then it will show here. And then you can see up here that there's a little funnel there, meaning that this field has been filtered. Click on the drop down arrow and check all and click OK, so we're back to where we started. So that's one way to customize it. I don't know about you, but when I look at the legend and I'm thinking, okay, what shade of blue am I looking at? Better yet, another way to customize this chart is to come up here on the Design tab to the Chart Styles group, click on the More button. Let's choose something that has different colors and not different shades of the same color. Select that, and that's so much better. Okay, blue, budget, you hover over there, well, it says budget, and it gives you the value. In fact, you can learn more about charts in my Excel 2010 training video. And this is like I said, a pivot chart because you can pivot between data. And where's the data coming from? Well, it's coming from this worksheet right here, the pivot table. And again, you can learn more about pivot tables and pivot charts in my Excel 2010 training videos on pivot tables and pivot charts. Okay. In any case, you can come in here as well, and you can see for tasks, you can click on the drop down arrow, and what you check here will update the chart, and what you check in the chart will update the data range that you see here in the pivot table. So again, if I uncheck all and I say I just want to see the research and the outline phase, click OK, it updates and it just shows me the cost for those two tasks of quarter 3, the baseline cost, and then the cost that we have at that time, and then the actuals that have been coming in. Okay. And then if we want to do a little bit more customization, again, you can learn more about it in my Excel 2010 training videos. I just want to give you something to work with here to get you started. Let me come back up here and click on the drop down arrow. You can see that little funnel there. That means that this field has been filtered. So if you're like, what the fudge? Where's all my data? Just take a look and make sure that nothing has a funnel next to it. And go ahead and check all, click OK, and we're back to where we started. Let's come back up here, click on the Options tab, go to the Show Group, bring up the field list. So it shows, well, by default, all those fields that was exported from project. We can even look at resources if we want. Whoa, there we go. So for quarter 3, here are the resources here. And you can click on the drop down arrow and say, hey, I don't want to see all the resources, just Writer 1. Click OK. And Writer 1 was working in quarter 3 as well as quarter 4. Like I said, what you do in the pivot table when you go to the chart will reflect in the chart as well. And you can see, there we go, for quarter 3, it's just showing for Writer 1, and quarter 4 for Writer 1. And you can look at the legend. Again, red is the baseline cost compared to the cost and the actual cost that's come in. And there are no actual costs. In other words, Writer 1 hasn't done anything. Maybe he did, but we haven't received the actuals or entered them into project to be able to get that column bar there for the actual cost in purple. Now, when it comes to creating a visual report template, in other words, as you recall in the past training video, we learned how to create a visual report here. And when I'm done with it and I check the boxes and I want to see the fields and I set it up just right, and I don't want to have to do this again when I export the budget cost report again and come over here, change the colors of the report, I went through a lot of work. So what I can do is I can go ahead and save it as a template that will be available when I go back to project. So to do that, come up here and click on the File tab. Let me click on it, go down to Save As. Click on the drop-down arrow and choose the Excel template.xltx. That's the extension. If you don't know anything about extensions, then I recommend that you watch my Windows training video on extensions. So go ahead and select that, and then come up here and give it a name, and we'll call it My Budget Report KK. Okay, go ahead and click Save, and then it'll ask you, this workbook contains external data. In other words, it exported it from project. So do you want Microsoft Excel to clear the data before saving the template and then automatically pulling in any updates from project when I export or open up this template again from project? definitely, I want the latest data. So click yes, and there you go. So when I go ahead and close out of here, and I go back to project, and I come back up here and go to the reports group, again on the project tab, click on visual reports. Where is it? There we go. My budget report KK. Double click on that. There we go. Close out of it, not save it. I saved another template while I was messing around here and had the generic name and didn't give it my fancy name. If I want to get rid of one of these templates here, come over here and click on Manage Templates. Opens up the window, scroll through it, and there it is. Right click on it and say you want to delete it and say yes, and it's gone. Close out. If it doesn't refresh here and it's still showing, then close out. Click on Visual Reports and it's gone. Okay. Now the other option here, besides working with one of these templates and customizing it and saving it as your own template, you can start from scratch. Click on New Template, and it says which application do you want to use. Let's use Excel. Then what data type? Let's see, task usage. Let's use assignment usage. And then the fields that you want to include in this report, click on Field Picker and notice all the available fields and those that have been selected from our choice of assignment usage. So you can add more if you want, or select these and remove them if you want. I'm going to go ahead and leave as is and click OK. Click OK, and there it is, starting from scratch. It has all the fields for me to choose from over in my pivot table field list with nothing defaulted saying, okay, you want to look at cost, we'll have them checked. You want to look at work, we'll have them checked. Again, this is from scratch. So let me come over here and take a look at the actual costs and also check, like, let's say the baseline costs, and then let's do the cost at that current time, and let's scroll down and see what else we got. Let's see, resources, and you can see as I start adding fields, the pivot table starts grouping them or putting them in groups, like for the resources, the actual cost so far for these resources, the baseline cost for the resources, and let me come down here and choose, well, for time, the weekly calendar. So you can see that when I check it, it adds the fields down below. It puts them either as a column label, values, or row labels. And you can go ahead and click and drag these and move them around. And if you're asking me, is there any magic to it? No, you just have to know your data. In other words, what do you want to see as a report filter or as a row label or in your values or for column labels? And there's the column labels here, the row labels here. You can flip them and move them around. It's just that how do you want to view your pivot table? Again, you can learn more about it in my Excel 2010 training videos on pivot tables and pivot charts. But again, I want to give you something a little bit more to work with in case if you don't have time to watch those training videos and give you something to kick you off in the right direction. So for example, we've got our row labels, which is resources, and here they are by rows. If I come and I click this and I drag it up into the report filter, what that does, instead of showing me all the resources, it says for all the resources, here are the costs without viewing all the resources. If I want to go ahead and filter for the resources, come up here, expand it, and then expand all, and then check the box so I can actually get check boxes for those resources, uncheck all, and say I just want to see it for writer 1, click OK, and then for writer 1, here's the actual costs compared against the baseline cost and the current cost. So there's writer 1, click on the drop down arrow, expand. How about if we uncheck that and go to, let's see, writer 2 and click OK. No actual costs yet because writer 2, well, they may have started a task or completed it, but we haven't actually entered it in. Okay. In any case, let's go ahead and change it from, you can see the funnel there, meaning that this report has been filtered, or the pivot table, and go ahead and check all and click OK, and we're back to, well, where we started by viewing the costs, the actuals for all the resources and comparing it against the baseline and the current costs. And down below, you got this deferred layout update. When you check that and you make changes here, it won't automatically update it until you click update, okay? In case if you don't want to see how the sausage is made, you just want to be able to see it all at once and click update. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that because I like to see it as I go along. And then if you want to go ahead and create a chart based upon the data here, then come up here and click on the Options tab, which by the way, you won't be able to see it if you don't have the pivot table selected, because when you have it selected, it brings up its related contextual tabs saying that, okay, when you work with the pivot table, here are the options that you get. Click on it, and then come over here to the Tools group and click on Pivot Chart, and then go ahead and choose a chart, double click on it, and there you go. It's an embedded chart. And you can hover over the border of it to click and drag it to move it around. And you get your pivot fields here that you can click and check, what resources you want to see, as well as in here. And remember, what you do in one updates the other. So if I come up here and I go uncheck all, expand it, and just say Rider 1, click OK, it updates it down below here for the actual cost for Rider 1. Let me go ahead and hit undo. And you can also, select the chart, and you get the different contextual tabs related to what you have selected, which is the chart. You got the design, click on more, and you can choose different colors here. And you can actually right-click within the chart and say that you want to move the chart to have it not be as an object within the sheet, but have its own sheet. Click OK. So you got it on its own sheet, and you've got the data on sheet 1. I mean, all this stuff you can learn in my Excel 2010 training videos, but here's a start. And let's go back to the chart here, and to go ahead and save this as a template, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Save As, click on the drop-down arrow for the type, and say you want to save it. The type is going to be the Excel template.xltx. Select that. Puts us right to the templates folder, and we can call it, which is on assignment usage. Then click Save. Do you want to go ahead and refresh this when you export it from project with the current data that's available in project? Say yes, close out. And if you don't see it here, go ahead and close out, come back up here, refresh it by opening it back up. And there's our Spiffy report assignment usage. Double click to test it to see if it opens up. Hey, that's fancy. To create a template based upon an existing project plan will save time and effort on working on similar projects in the future. So for example, I've got my Spiffy software training manual here. And if I'm going to be creating additional software training manuals, but not on something Spiffy in the future, then if I already have the tasks typed in here once, why would I want to do that again on similar projects in the future? Instead, I could go ahead and save this as a template and then just make copies of it and go ahead and, update it and say, okay, instead of Spiffy, this is going to be my Excel software training manual, my PowerPoint, and so on. In fact, before we save this as a template, we want to get this to be as generic as possible because there are some things in here that may only pertain to this project. But future projects, when it's similar to the software training manuals, we'll keep, like, the summary tasks, their subtasks, and so on. So again, before I go ahead and save this as a project template, let me come over here and see if there's something that's proprietary only to this project that I don't want to save as a template. Like, is there a hyperlink that I can right click on and come down here and say, before I save this as a template, let's clear it. Are there notes here that I don't want? Double click, go to the Notes tab, and this could be, like, let's say only for the Spiffy software training manual. It has no use in future projects. Then go ahead and delete it. Click and drag delete. Click OK. And then let's see, we got a constraint here. In future projects, we may not have constraints. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Double click, go to the Advanced tab, and click on the drop-down arrow and say Start as soon as possible. Click OK. And then we get issues. But again, that's just with this project here that I'm currently working on that I'm trying to clean up. So it's something a bit more generic that I can save as a project template for future projects. Well, you can see the two dudes here. They're in red because, as you can see, my project is, well, you've got some tasks starting a bit earlier and not necessarily waiting until the predecessor is finished. So what I'm going to do is really go to town and clean this up and say, okay, here's the milestone. As soon as that starts, we can go to the next task, which it skips it and comes down here. So if I come up here and double click, go to the predecessors tab and say, you're going to start right after the milestone, start manual, finish to start relationship, click OK. And then this one that goes down to, let's see, this task here, when you click on the task bar, it highlights the task over in the table so you can see what task you have selected in case if your eyes are like mine sometimes and go, ooh, well, is it this task up here that I selected down here? No, just click on it, the bar, and it will select the corresponding row in the table. Okay, so the predecessor for this one is going to be interview subject matter experts and not start manual, so double click. It's not going to be start manual. It's not going to be this one. Come up here. It's going to be interview subject matter experts. The default's finish to start. Click OK. And then let's see this task when it finishes. This one's starting way ahead of schedule. And like I said, in most projects that I work on in the future, well, it may not be like this. So I basically am trying to clean this up. So it's one right after another. And well, this one right here is starting, oh gosh, 50% of the way through. If I look over here and I see that this one finishes on the 7th, how about if we start this one on the next day on the 8th? So that's on the 7th, come down here and we can start on the 8th and it pushes it out. And then this one, let's see, that one finishes on the 14th. If we start this one on the 15th, pushes it out, then this one finishes on the 16th. So its successor will start, let's say, on the 17th. And then this one starts, let's see, on the 13th. We'll have it go after its predecessor above the 20th. So if we can go to the 21st, there we go. You can see that all these that have the black progress bar gets bumped out one at a time until I get to a point where I change the one that has been completed, and the successors that haven't been marked complete will automatically fall in place. Because when you're dealing with actuals here and you update them, it just moves that task and it doesn't affect the other ones if its successor has been completed as well. But if, again, the successors have not been completed, then you see when I adjusted this one and pushed it out, everything else like a domino effect gets pushed out. And then I've got one more issue here. It's this dude right here, because writer 1's assigned to both of these tasks, and this is what? Hover over it, start to start relationship, double click. We'll do finish to start. Click OK, and that's how my projects, at least I'm hoping, will be in the future, where it's one right after the next, okay? So once I have this set up, all cleaned up, I can save it as a template. Come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Save As, come down here and click the Save As Type arrow, and go to, well, you've got an earlier version that you can save it as a template, or the most recent version is just simply called Project Template. Select it, takes you right to the Templates folder. Let's go ahead and give it a name and call it My Project Template, KK, my initials, click Save. And then a cool little thing that pops up, it says you're about to save a file as a template. You can choose to remove the following data items from the template, which you're probably thinking before when I saved it, you're like, hey, wait a second, you got actuals in here. These have been completed. When you save it as a template, what's going to happen? That when you make a copy of it for a new software training manual, you're not going to have half of them completed, are you? Well, don't worry about it, because I was waiting until this point in time to show you that you can select those types of data that you want removed from the template before it gets saved, like values of all baselines, actual values, resource rates, fixed costs, and whether tasks have been published to the project server, which if you're working with a project server, that's an entirely different training video. In any case, if you want that to be removed, if it's been published before to a server, then go ahead and check it and click Save. And then once you save it, if there's any additional modifications you need to make to it, like, oh gosh, this resource that has been assigned is over allocated, and is it for this one? Okay, writer 1, I bet it's admin 2, because the one above it, let's see, it finishes on the 7th and starts on the 8th, and writer 1 wouldn't be conflicting or having any overtime. So if we right click and go to the resource sheet, there we go, it's admin assistant 2. As you recall, that pop-up note says, hey, given enough notice, they can work mornings, and also when you double click, they're only available from October the 13th through November the 28th. So admin assistant 2, if I right click and go back to the Gantt chart, cannot be assigned to this task. In any case, if this is a template, you may want to consider actually removing the resources assigned to these tasks if you're going to be using different resources. So at the very least, when you save it as a template and you go ahead and create a copy of that template to create a new project, then you don't have to type in the tasks and, well, also add the resources. In any case, if you need to make any changes, then make your changes, like come up here, go to the resource, click Assign Resources. We want to remove Admin Assistant, and then click off of it and say, okay, for this one we won't have any assistants assisting. And you can see up in the title bar, it's still in the .mpt extension, the template. So any changes I make and I click Save, will save and update the template. If you feel more comfortable by coming up here and clicking on the File tab, going down to Save As, and changing it again to project template. You can see your template there, double click on it. To overwrite it, click OK. Again, remove those things if you added any, then click Save, and that's it. Now when you're finished, if we go ahead and close out and don't save this, and we're like, okay, time to create a new project. Let's see, it's going to be for a new software training manual. Oh my gosh, do I have to type in all those tasks? Just come up here, click on the File tab, go down to New, go to My Templates, and there's the template that you saved, which was called My Project Template, and then double click, opens it up. Hey, I don't have to type in summary task, subtask, assign resources to the task. For the project summary task, you just come up in here and you say, this is going to be my... You're ready to go ahead and save this. Come up here, click on the Save button, and notice that it doesn't dump you back into the template folder. It's going to save a copy of the template so you don't overwrite the template with the changes that you make, so you can work on this project without overwriting the original template, so in the future you can make another copy of the template to work on a similar project and so on. So you can go to the desktop and call this the database, click Save, and then go ahead and assign new resources, change the resources, add resources, go to the resource sheet view, and everything that we learned about in the training videos in the past up until this point. Oh yeah, one last thing. If you want to delete your templates, then come up here, click on the File tab, and go down to, like you're going to save your project as a template, and click on the Save as Type drop-down arrow, and go down to Project Template to take you to that folder, and then right-click on the template and go ahead and delete it. Click Yes. If it doesn't delete it, it means that you probably are working on that template right now. In other words, you got to close out a project completely, and then open project back up, and, well, start with a blank project or some other project. Just don't have that template up so you can delete it. By now you should be very familiar with the different views, and within the views, like the Gantt chart view here, they're default tables. As you can see in the upper left hand corner, when I hover over the table header cell, in that pop-up it says the entry, or you can right click on it and there's the entry table. Okay, that's the default table for this view. Well, what if I want to go to the Gantt chart view, or any view for that matter, and be able to pull up a different table? And that table that I pull up isn't just for that project session that I have open, but will always go to that same table anytime I open up project. What you can do is you can create what's called a single custom view. And to create that view, you want to come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Resource Views group, click on the Other Views drop-down arrow, and go to More Views. Then come over here and click on New, and you can define the new view either in a single or a combo. We'll go over the combo in the next training video, but right now let's do single. Click OK. And then go ahead and give the name for that view. I mean, you can leave it as generic View 1, but hey, that doesn't make any sense to me when I'm looking for a particular view. Mine's going to be called My Spiffy Task Progress Sheet. So the screen or the view that I want it to go to could be the Gantt chart, but because it's going to be about my tasks, let's go to the task sheet, and about the progress of those tasks, then the table is going to be tracking. And then as far as grouping goes within that view or within the table, I'm going to have no group, or you can group it by critical. Let's say no. And then for filtering, for those tasks that I want to see, maybe just slipping tasks, I'm going to say I want to see all the tasks. And then by default, it'll show it in the menu. So when I go ahead and want to change views over here and right click on the view bar, it will show it in the menu, My Spiffy Task Progress Sheet. In fact, let me put on by KK. Okay. My initials, click Okie dokie. It's right there. I can go ahead and apply it right now, and hey, isn't that fun? So when I come up here and I right click on the view bar and I go to the Gantt chart, I'm like, okay, I need to keep track of the tasks, see how we're doing. Let's come over here and right click on the view bar. Instead of going to the task sheet and then changing the task sheet from whatever table is the default table to tracking, as an example. So if I go to the task sheet, come up here and hover over it, it's the variance table, or if it remembers the last table I was in. In any case, I can always have that view available over here to right click that I customize for my single view, my Spiffy Task Progress Sheet, and hey, there we go. Sweet. And then of course don't forget, if you need to make any changes to it, to edit it, come back up here, click on Other Views, go down to More Views, select your view and select Edit. Go ahead and make changes, click OK when you're done, and it'll update it. As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to create a single custom view where, well, you just have one view. Unlike the Gantt chart, when you come over here and right-click on the view bar and go to the Gantt chart, you've got two views. I mean, you've got the chart and then you have the table. Well, I'm going to show you how you can create a combo custom view where it's going to be a split view, but not vertically. It's going to be horizontally. So whatever view you want to see on the top, like maybe a chart, and then down below a table, or vice versa, or both charts or both tables. To create that combo custom view, come back up here on the View tab, the Resource Views, click on Other Views, and go down to More Views. And then click on New, and then go ahead and select Combination View, click Okie dokie, and name your view. Let's call it, everything we do here is spiffy, so it's going to be my spiffy tracking view, the primary view, the view that's going to be on the top, and then you have the split bar. Down below that is going to be your details. So up at the top is going to be the tracking Gantt, and then down below, hey, we can pull in my spiffy task progress sheet. Hey, why not? Go ahead and select that, click Okie dokie, and there it is, my spiffy tracking view. Click Apply. Hey, there's the tracking Gantt up there, and then there's my spiffy task progress sheet down below. So as I go from one to the next here, as I select it, you get more details down below. Again, it's my spiffy task progress sheet, which is pretty cool. It gives me more information than I can see up here. I don't have to click and drag this over, add more columns, because it's enough for me to look up here to say, okay, I can see what's coming next. Where down here, once I get to it, I get more details of that task. And then I can get it graphically here. I mean, the combo view can be pretty cool. And then, of course, to make any changes to it, to update it, come back up here, click on Other Views, go to More Views, and then go ahead and find your spiffy tracking view. Click on Edit, change the views, click Okie dokie. I'm going to click Cancel, and it will update. And so to get out of this view, if I come over here and right-click and go to the Gantt chart, because I'm still in split view, it just changes the top view. And if you recall in an earlier training video, to get rid of the split view, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can either hover over the split bar. You can see when I hover over it, I get arrows pointing up and down. You can double click on it really fast or click and drag down to minimize it, or click and drag down completely to remove it, or come up here on the View tab to the Split View group and uncheck the split view. And then come back over here and right click on the view bar to go back to your spiffy tracking view here, and double click really fast to get rid of it, to be able to go to another view without that split view. The organizer is a tool for copying, deleting, and renaming project elements like calendars, reports, tables, and views, as well as making custom views available to other project plans. So to go ahead and open up this organizer, you can do it one of many ways. You can either come up here, and in the back door, there are many back doors, like in the Resource Views group on the View tab, click on Other Views and go to More Views, and there's the organizer. Okay, I'm a little bit congested, so it doesn't sound as cool, but click on it, and it opens up this window, or close out, come up here, click on the File tab, and to the info is selected by default. There's the organizer, brings up the same window. So you have all these different elements that you can look at and see if you have it in your main project, or if it's available in the default global template, meaning that anytime you create a new project, these are what views are going to be available: reports, modules, tables, and let's see, fields. Remember in an earlier training video we created custom fields? Well, they're available in this project, but not available in all new projects. So if I'm like, every time I create a new project, I want to be able to have the deliverables custom field available, select it, click copy, and anytime I create a new project, let's go ahead and close out. Let's see, come down here, click on New, double click on Blank Project. So when I want to insert a custom field, it was deliverables text 1. Actually, we can just come up here, click on the File tab, and go to Organizer, and go to Fields, and you can see it's there. Okay, you really want to find out if it's there. It shows that it's here, but it's text 1. Click on the File tab to go back to the front stage. Right-click on any column header. Go down to Insert Column. Type in the name, the project name that it has for that custom field. Even though we call it deliverables, the project name is text 1, and hey, there it is. Sweet. Okay, going to go ahead and hit the Escape key and close out of the inner X. When you close out of the inner X, it closes out of that file and not the program, which is the outer X. So go to the ini and close out and say no, and we're still in the program with the other project file up. So to bring up the organizer, click on the File tab, Info to Organizer, and there we go with the fields. So that's available in all new projects unless I select it and say no and delete it, or I rename it. And we can't do it for custom fields, but we can do it for, let's see, views. My Spiffy tracking view, rename. My Spiffy tracking view number 2. And click OK. So that will be available in all new projects. Now, if you have a project that you want to be able to take something that you created in the current project that you have, but you don't want it available in the global template for all new projects, what you have to do then is, well, let me close out of here, is you have to open up both projects. So let me come up here and click on the File tab. I got my Spiffy Software Training Manual, and then I want to come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Open, go to my desktop, and then go to the Exercises folder and open up another project. Whoa. Double click on that. Now you can see down the taskbar for every button that I have a corresponding window or file that's opened. Of course, I cover this in my Windows training video. Buy it. In any case, that was subliminal. When I have both projects open, I come up here and click on the File tab and go down to Organizer. By default, whichever project that I'm working on, it's pulling it up here. You can see the views available are in another project. But don't I also have the Spiffy Software Training project open as well? I do. Just click on the drop-down arrow, you can go to Spiffy. So in one window I have Spiffy, in another one I have the global template. But I can say, look, I don't want to copy what I have available in the Spiffy program to make it available to everybody when they create a new project or any new projects that I create. I just want to copy it over to the another project. Whoa. You see what I'm saying? These views, when you click on the drop-down arrow, will only show those projects that you have open along with the default template. So if you don't have another project open, then you can't be able to, select it and then swap recipes back and forth, as it were, or views or reports, things like that. So in the views for my Spiffy Software Training Manual, we created our single view, then our combo view that I want available in an earlier project or another project will. So select it and copy it over, and it's available in that project. So, there may come a time where 20 projects later, you go, hey, this is a cool view, and you say this is going to be available. Let me change it in all new projects and copy it over if it's not already there. But then you're like, wait a second, I have 20 projects that don't have that view. Well, go ahead and open them up and then just copy them over after you change the view to the correct project to be able to copy it over, okay? If you want to be able to share your resources across many different projects that are going on at the same time, then I'm going to show you here how you can create what's called a resource pool. And basically, it's a separate project file that contains only resources. And in there, you can take those resources and assign them to tasks in one or more project plans or projects that are going on at the same time. For example, in my Exercises folder on my desktop, I've got my resource pool here that's called the Training Manual Resource Pool. And it only contains resources. So when it comes to these other projects that are going on at the same time that need to use the same resources, it's a lot easier for me to go ahead and have one project file that contains all the resources that will allow me to go ahead and assign them out or have them pull those resources from that pool to be able to manage that and not, go into this project file and say, okay, here's a bunch of resources. And then go to this one and go, okay, let's see, what did I use in the other file? And can I use it at the same time in this file? And bounce back and forth. So we can pull all our resources into one file and be able to share those and have them linked to these two project files here. So having a resource pool is going to eliminate the need for project managers to re-enter resources and keep share files, well, these files that are sharing from the resource pool, centralized and consistent and a current source of resource information, and thus help preventing over-allocation. So if you go ahead and assign a resource in this project and assign the same resource in this project at the same time, it'll actually flag you and say that this resource is over-allocated if their standard working day is an 8-hour day, and you've already got them in 8 hours in this project here. So let's go ahead and open up the resource pool so I can show you. Double-click. And this resource is already connected or linked or is sharing resources to one of the project files. It's actually Access 2010. So it says, because it's linked, This file is the resource pool for many projects. Well, actually only one right now, but in any case, what do you want to do? You can either go ahead and open it up in read-only mode that allows others to work on their project plans linked to the pool, or you can open up and read-write if you need to make changes, like when it comes to the resources themselves, like pay rates, but it blocks out and prevents other share files or those other projects that are sharing those resources from the resource pool from updating it themselves. Or you can go ahead and open the resource pool read-write and allow other share files into a new master project file. Well, we'll cover the master project in the next training video. So for right now, let's just go ahead and open the resource pool in read-only, allowing others to go ahead and work on their projects that are connected to this pool. Click Okie dokie, and there you go. Nothing but resources as far as the eye can see. In any case, so I can show you that there's nothing else in this project file but resources. Let me come over here and right-click on the view bar, go to the Gantt chart, no task, nothing. Just again, right-click on the view bar, a bunch of resources that we're sharing right now with one other project. And if you want to find out what other project that we're sharing the resources with, or actually link up and share this to another project, just come up here and click on the Resource tab, go to the Assignments group, click on the Resource Pool drop-down arrow, and click on Share Resources. And you can see right now the link is pointing right to the Access 2010 Training Manual, the project file, on my desktop in the Exercises folder. So when I go ahead and open up Access 2010, it'll have a link to all these resources here that I can go ahead and use and assign to the tasks within that project. Let me show you. Let's come up here and close out of the inner X so we can leave the program open. Come down here to the Exercises folder and open up Access 2010. Now it says that this file shares resources from a resource pool. What do you want to do? You can open up the resource pool to see the assignments across all sharer files, or do not open other files. If I do not open that other file, then it's not going to allow me to see the resources and assign them to the tasks within my project. So I want to make sure that I open the resource pool to see the assignments and be able to go ahead and take those resources and assign them to the tasks here. So click Okie dokie, and you can see down below in the taskbar, I've got my Access 2010, and I have the resource pool. When I click on it, you can see it's opened up as well. Let's go back to Access 2010. You can see that I've already assigned Writer 1 and Admin Assistant 1. And if I come over here and right-click on the view bar and go to the resource sheet, those are all the resources that are pulling from the pool that you could say are copied over into this project. Actually, it's linked. So if I go ahead, and I'll show you this later on, if I assign a resource in another project that's sharing this as well at the same time without any overtime for a standard day of 8 hours, so they're working 16 hours, it'll show it in red here and also in their projects. But let's keep it simple for now, and you can see that we do have resources being pulled over, or we're linked to the pool. So let's go ahead and close out of here and say no, and close out of the resource pool and come back to our exercises folder and open up Access 2010 again, and this time say don't open up the resource pool, and click OK, and come over here and right click on the view bar, go to the resource sheet, and I don't have the other resources. And you can see that these resources are in red because, well, it leaves them here because they're assigned already to the task. Back in the Gantt chart, right click and go to the Gantt chart, you can see that they're assigned, but they're not connected back to the mothership. So they've broken off, and they're not tied to the resource pool because I didn't open it up, so it doesn't show me the additional resources. And those two that I've assigned, while it's not going to remove them, it's not going to be helpful for me to know if somebody else is using these resources at the same time if I don't have that connection to the resource pool when I open up my project. So make sure that when you open it up, I recommend you always open it up along with the resource pool so we can get that connection to see, resources that we've assigned if they're not currently in use by another project at the same time. Let's go ahead and close out of the Access here and not save it. And let's go back to the Exercises folder and open up Excel. Double click on that, and when you right click on the view bar, go to the resource sheet. Well, actually we've got one resource there, which brings up a good point. You got your resource pool that's sharing with all the projects. What if you have a resource that is not going to be shared with everybody else, but it's just for your project? That's fine. Go ahead and type in the resource, and then let's go ahead and connect up with the mothership, or the resource pool as it were, to bring in those resources that we want in addition to the one resource that's not being shared with everybody else and see what happens. Now, to go ahead and to link this to the resource pool, come up here on the Resource tab to the Assignments group, click on the Resource Pool drop-down arrow, and click on Share Resources. Now, for resources for Excel 2010, do you want to use your own? Well, want to use that, but I also want to use resources from a resource pool. The reason why I cannot select this is because I don't have the resource pool open. When I have it open, then it'll allow me to go ahead and select it and choose it. So let me click Cancel, come down here to the Exercises folder, and double-click to open up the resource pool. And let's leave it in the default read only so we can allow whoever's working on the other project that's connected to this pool to allow them to work on their project plans linked to the pool. So let's go ahead and click and say okie dokie. Now that we have the training manual open, the resource pool, let's go back to our Excel project here and come up here, click on the resource pool drop down arrow, share resources. There you go. Now we get the options to use resources from the training manual. And before we click OK, it says if there's a conflict with calendar or resource information, which one do you want to take precedence, the pool or the sharer? Well, when it comes to sharing resources, I would say the pool takes precedence because we all have to share. Or if your project is more important than the other ones and there's a conflict, then you'll take precedence as the sharer over the pool. So they have to kind of make room for you if you select as the sharer. So I recommend if you're sharing with other projects, unless, well, there is the other option, unless you need that other option, let the pool take precedence, okay? And click okie dokie. And what happened to Writer 4? He's still there. It just brought in all the other resources from that pool that's in addition to the resource that we added here. Cool. Okay, picking up where we last left off, as you recall in the previous training video, we had these resources that got pulled in because we linked this project file to the resource pool, and then we had the original resource before we linked up to the resource pool, Writer 4. The problem that you run into is that anytime you have resources in your project that aren't from the resource pool, when you click Save, the resource pool is going to want to update the resources within your project here. And if it's not from the resource pool, then it's going to remove it. So when I come up here and click Save, it says, do you want to update the resource pool to reflect changes for all the open share projects? Again, share projects are those projects that are sharing resources from the resource pool, like this one right here, Excel 2010. When I click OK, there you go, he's gone. So if you want to get around that, here's one thing you can do. Let me go ahead and close out and not save it. And close out of the resource pool, go back to the folder and open up Excel 2010 and not open up the resource pool or have it linked. And click OK, and let me enter back in my Writer 4 and then click Save. I'll do the standard and overtime rates later. And then close out, go back to the folder, open it back up, and you can see Writer 4 is there. Let's go ahead and open up and link up to the resource pool. Click OK. There's the resources, there's Writer 4. Now to get around this, before I go ahead and click Save and lose my Writer 4 again, you want to assign any resources that you have that's not from the resource pool or in it to a task. Because once you have it assigned to a task, the resource pool goes, oh, I guess this resource is being used for something. Better not remove them. So come over here and right-click on the view bar. Go to the Gantt chart. Let's go ahead and assign Writer 4 to Create Outline. Come up here, click on the Resource tab, click Assign Resources. Let's scroll down. Writer 4, Assign. Close out. You can see he's assigned to that task. Right click on the view bar, go back to the resource sheet, and there's Writer 4. Click Save, click OK. He's still there. In fact, not only that, but here's the downside to it, is that the resource pool, because Writer 4 has been assigned in your project to a task, will say, hey, Writer 4 is good for something, so we'll go ahead and put him or Writer 4 in the resource pool. Let me show you. Close out. You can say yes. OK, close out, and go back to this time the resource pool and click OK. You can see Writer 4 is there. So if you don't want to share your resources, they're proprietary to your project, but you want to go into the resource pool to pull in those resources to use as well, then maybe to keep your resources, you don't want to give them a name like somebody that can identify and go, hey, I want to use that resource. Maybe you could type in like, this is OK resource, Writer number 4. And then maybe you'll be the only one that will use it and the only one wiser for that resource, and hopefully nobody else will pull it from the resource pool and you'll have conflicts. In any case, let me go ahead and close out of here. And let's open up the Access project and click OK. And you can see over here that in the Gantt chart, I've got Rider 1 assigned to this task. Let me click and drag the split bar over. And you can see that this task is scheduled from August the 1st of 2008 through the 6th. So let me go ahead and close out of here and not save it. Close out of here, go back to the folder, open up Excel, click OK, right-click the view bar and go to the Gantt chart. You'll notice that this task is also going to be worked on during that same time period, August the 1st, 2008 through the 6th. So what would happen if I assign the same resource, Rider 1, to a task that's going to be going on at the same time as that task in the other project? Come up here, click Assign Resources. Let's scroll down to Rider 1, click Assign, close out. Because of the link, project is going to say, hey, I'm going to give you a red dude to say that this resource is over allocated. Okay, so how do we go ahead and fix this? Well, from what we learned in previous training videos, we can. One option is to push out the start date because we know that this resource is going to be used until the 6th, so we can come over here and say, go ahead and start on the 7th. And then it says, okay, you're moving the task. Do you want to go ahead and break the link from the predecessor here, or do you want to keep it and just push the task out? We'll keep it and push it out. So the link is still there from the predecessor of the milestone start manual. And you can see that we got no red dude. But because we pushed it out, it says that this task can start no earlier than the 7th. It added a constraint, again, to let us know that when you do something like this, it's flagging us. And it's a good thing because then if somebody else comes in here and goes, hey, we're supposed to start on the 1st, what's the deal? You know, they can push it back, and if they don't see the red dude that the resource is over allocated, then that could be a problem. And hopefully they're cognizant of the project and what's going on and making sure that they check all the details and the different fields. So you can do it that way, or we can hit undo. The other option is you can come up here on the resource tab to the level group and click on level resource. Now when you do that, you're going to have to find out what project does. In other words, I'm going to go ahead and level the selected resource, so I want to make sure that the selected resource is Rider 1. I've got the project selected here, Excel 2010, and click Level Now, and you can see it pushed it out. Cool. So it does pretty much the same thing that I did. And let me go ahead and undo that. Now, if this resource is being used by multiple projects and you're like, okay, who's using this resource? Maybe I want to contact the person working on that project and say, I really got to use the resource. Can you go ahead and use somebody else? In any case, if you want to find out which project the resource is working on, just come over here and right-click on the view bar. I like the resource usage view. Let me go ahead and select that because you can scroll down here and go to the resource, and it will automatically, when you're sharing the resources from a pool, let you know what other tasks have been assigned to that resource. And when I look at this, well, you can see that it's cut off, but when I hover over it, it says Examine Software, which is within my project, the task that that resource has been assigned to, but also the same name of that task in another project. And I'm scratching my head going, well, which is which? You can find out by coming up here and right-clicking on the column label for any column and going down to Insert. And if it's not going to insert, my project's having a bit of an issue, you can come up here, click on Add New Column, and just type in Project. And then select it, and it inserts it. Scroll back down, and well, let me drag the split bar out and scroll back. And I need to scroll it just a little bit. There we go. So Examine Software is being used in my project, and this one right here, well, it's got a long address, but you can see towards the end of the address the name of the project, which is Access 2010. If you select it, you've got the entry bar up above. You can see the entry bar, get the full details there without having to, click and drag to stretch open that column or hover over it to get the pop-up. And again, to get the entry bar, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, go to the Display category and check Entry Bar and click OK. So I can see that he's being used in this other project. If he's being used in other projects at the same time that's causing this over allocation, I can contact them and go, hey, everybody knock it off. I got to use them. And if you want to know if they're over allocated by a couple hours, maybe you can give them overtime. Then go ahead and select the task, come up here on the Task tab, to the editing group and click on Scroll to Task and look over here, and you can see that it's 8 hours a day in my project, and maybe the other project, if it's not 8 hours, maybe 2, it's still above 8 hours a day, but I'm willing to pay overtime to go ahead and use this person within my project. But if it's too much, then we have to resort to other avenues. In fact, the least of which, let me right click and go back to the Gantt chart, is maybe to assign somebody else instead of this resource, like maybe Writer 4. A master project is a file that contains other inserted projects, and each inserted project is called a subproject. Now, these subprojects in the master project will be linked back to their original project files. For example, when I open up the exercises folder, and I've got 2 projects here that I don't want to open them up separately and close out of that one, open up this one to track both of them. Instead, I can go ahead and create a master project file, insert these into it, and be able to see both of them at the same time. And then any changes that I make in one in the master will update that original file and vice versa. So if any changes are made in this original file, it'll update my master as well. So to go ahead and create this master project file, let's go ahead and open up project, come up here, click save. Let's go to the desktop and call it master, or whatever you want to call it. Click save. Technically, I probably ought to have called it my master project on software training manuals. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and add my project summary task for the master. As you recall back in an earlier training video, to add a project summary task, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, and then click on Advanced, and then scroll down to Display Options for this project, that section, and there it is. Show Project Summary Task, which is basically the title of my project here. Now, so here's the master. All I have to do to go ahead and to pull those other 2 projects into the master, which will be known as subprojects, well, when they're in the master here, just come up here and click on the Project tab, go to the Insert group, and first of all, I clicked below the Summary task because I want to insert it at that next row and not, on the Summary task, and then click on Subproject. It opens up the window and it says, okay, where's this project that you want to insert into the master? It's going to be in my exercises folder. Double click and let's do access, and there it is. Let's do the next one below that, which is going to be Excel, subproject, Excel, and there you go. Now, as you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to share the resources between projects, and these 2 projects are still sharing resources from the resource pool. In fact, if I go back to my exercises folder, there's the resource pool. So what's going to happen is when I click on the plus sign, it says, well, when you expand and you look at these tasks within that project, they have resources assigned to them, and those resources are being used from the pool. Do you want to go ahead and take a look at the assignments, and if there's any updates, have that reflected with what you're looking at here? Well, definitely. Click OK, it expands it, and of course you can't see it over here in the Gantt chart because we're in the year 2013 and this was back in 2008. So I can right click on the timescale and go to Zoom and select entire project and click OK, and automatically takes me back to the beginning point of that project right there, which is August 1st of 2008. And then you can see down below that the resource pool is opened. Let me go back to the master and then go ahead and scroll down, and then there's the Excel 2010 subproject. Click on the plus sign to expand it, and you can see exactly what's going on all in one project file between those 2 projects. I mean, you can insert more if you want. That's quite a bit in any case. And you can see over here that the resource assigned to this one, Writer 1, is over allocated because he's also assigned at the same time to this task here. Now, like I said, what you do in the master to this project, Access 2010 or the other one, will update in the original project file. So let's go ahead and say instead of 4 days, it'll be 3. Click out. When I'm done, go ahead and save. And then it says, do you want to save changes to Access 2010, the subproject in here, and say yes. Then it goes to Excel and it says, okay, any changes in Excel do you want to save? Yes. I mean, you could have said yes to all, but in any case. And then, of course, we're dealing with the resource pool. You want to update the resource pool to reflect changes from all open share projects. So if there are any changes made, we want to update the shared projects. Click OK. And let's go ahead and close out of the master. And here we go again. Just say yes to all. And click OK to all again for the resource pool
to update in those two projects. Let's go ahead and go back to the exercises folder. And then, like I said, I updated it in the master for the sub project, which was Access 2010. And this is the original file. And we can go ahead and open up the resource pool if we want. And let's see if it says 3 days. Yep. So what I do in the master to this sub project that was inserted into it, it links back, and vice versa. If I go up to 4 days, click out and click save, we'll update the share pool, close out, yeah, save again, click OK. I mean, we've already saved it, so we could have closed out and said no, and then close out of here. On my desktop is the master, double click, and open up the share pool, and we're back to 4 days. Okay, cool. So what you do in one updates the other, and that way you can have your other project managers work on those sub-projects, and then you can keep an eye on all of them and have them linked into the master. A few additional thoughts that I have regarding your master project file, and I'm picking up where we last left off in the previous training video. My first thought is I don't have any taskbars over here in the Gantt chart. Let me clean that up just a second. Let me right click on the time scale, go to zoom, go to entire project and click OK. Okay, I feel better. All right. The first thought that I have is that when you insert projects as sub-projects into the master, as you recall in the previous training video, they're linked. So any changes I make here in the master, like with the duration, the start and finish dates, for this sub-project, Access 2010, it'll update the original project file. If I want to go ahead and do some scenarios or what-ifs, where I make changes here and try this or try that without affecting the original project file, in other words, I want to break the link, then come up here and select the project summary task for that project and double-click on it and go to the Advanced tab, and there you go. Go ahead and uncheck Link to Project, and then click OK. And any changes you make after you, well, break the link, obviously it won't update that original project file. So you can go ahead and play around with that so nobody who's working on it goes, what the fudge, and freaks out, okay? Another thought that I have is, as you recall, in the Level 1 training video, we went over the WBS or work breakdown structure, which the definition of it is a hierarchy of tasks represented by numbers that identify the unique place of each task in the structure. So looking at the Gantt chart, we can easily identify that the unique place in the structure of examined software is a subtask to the summary task because it's indented. Now, when you go to reports or other views and it's not easily identifiable, or it's not indented, or you don't have the summary task that says, hey, this is a summary task or it's a phase, then adding a WBS code or even an outline code, which is a very simplistic code of the work breakdown structure, is to come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the Show Hide group, and there you go, check outline number, and then you can see here, well, for each summary task, it numbers it to, that's the third summary task in 4, and then within the summary task, the first number is tied to the summary task saying, okay, this belongs to 2, that belongs to 2, that belongs to 2, and then after that, it identifies this comes first within that group or that structure as the subtask within the summary, and this is going to be the second subtask and the third. Now, you can do it that way, but the other thought that I had is that how about when it comes to your master project, that you create your own custom WBS code that not only breaks down the structure by the outline number that you see here, but also displays the name of the subprojects and their sequence as related to other subprojects in the master. How about if you do something like that? Because maybe when I insert these subprojects into the master, I'd like to say, okay, Access is going to be the first one, Excel is going to be the second one, and I want to create a WBS code that identifies that as the first one, and also the name of it, Access, because, you know, when you scroll down here, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, hey, what tasks are these for? What project? Let's see, I have to scroll up. Oh, there it is, for Access 2010. Well, if I go ahead and create the WBS code correctly and insert it as a column here, then anywhere I scroll down, it'll actually tell me, without having to scroll up, to find out what task I'm looking at here, which project it's tied to, okay? So to do this, what I recommend to do first, let me go ahead and scroll up, is to go into each original file for the Access 2010. Let me go ahead and click off here and collapse it. And into the other one, Excel 2010, create the WBS custom codes in there saying the WBS code is 1, and then this one's going to be 2, Excel 2010, and customize them in their own separate project files. and then create one here for the master that will tie and bring all those in together, okay? So let's go ahead and close out, and we can say yes to all and OK to all, close out of that completely, and go into the individual project files, the sub-projects of the master, which again, as you recall, it's the access. Double click on that. We can open up the resource, that's fine. And then come up here and click on the project tab. Go to the properties group, there's the WBS, and we're going to define the code for this project by coming up here, clicking in project code prefix, and typing in access. When I'm looking at this in my master project, that this should be the first project that I'm looking at as far as sequence goes. It's Access 2010, and let me go ahead and choose a code. Do we want numbers? Do we want letters? I can go ahead and choose numbers, and then notice when I choose the number, it says up here in the preview, it's going to have the code 1 Access 2010, and then it's got 1, so it looks like, hey, what year is that? That's pretty funky. Well, come back down here in the project code prefix, hit the spacebar, and I'm going to give it a dash and hit the spacebar again. So when it creates that work breakdown structure, for every single task within the master project for Access 2010, it's going to say Access 2010 dash, then it'll be 1, then it'll be 2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and so on. So we click OK, click Save. We can go ahead and click OK for the resource pool, and let's say no, we're not going to save that again. Then go back to the exercises folder. Let's do it for Excel. Yeah, we'll open that up. That's fine. Then on the project tab, WBS, define the code, and it's going to be the second project within the master. In fact, I could abbreviate it more and just say Excel 10 for 2010. And then come down here. Let's also do numbered, and we don't want Excel 101, so we want to come up here in the code prefix box and hit the space bar, give it a dash. You can see up here that Excel 2010, or 10 for 2010-1. Click OK, click Save, click OK, close out. We're not going to save it again. Close out, and then back to the master, which was on my desktop. Let me minimize this down to the taskbar. Oh, master. Double click, open it back up, open up the resource pool. Then let's go ahead and define it within our master project, WBS, to define code. And we'll say instead of numbers for each of these projects here, we can say that it's going to be, if you want to do this, you don't have to take it this far, but I'm going to go ahead and say uppercase letters and say that this is for the master. And what that is going to do is that for the subtask within the master for the inserted sub-projects, it'll have this identified as Project A and Project B. I mean, you don't have to do this, but I want to show you it at all levels when you create a work breakdown structure code and customize it like I'm doing it, and click OK. And then all you have to do is go ahead and insert the WBS field, which you can do that by right-clicking on any column header, going down to Insert, and then type in WBS, and there it is, select it, and there we go. So you can see that there's Master A, Master B. Let me collapse that. So you can see within the master you got your custom WBS code. And then when you expand it and you're looking at those sub-projects that are inserted into the master, let me go ahead and hover over in between the two column headers till I can get arrows pointing in opposite directions, so I can double click really fast and click and drag the split bar. And when I scroll down and I can no longer see the name of the project these tasks are tied to, I can just come over and look over in the WBS column here and go, oh, it's Access 2010. In fact, let me come up here, click on the Format tab, and uncheck Outline Numbers, so it's no longer doing it here, but I can view it over here. And you can see that Research Phase is Task 2, and then this subtask is tied to it, so it's going to be 2, 2, 2, all these subtasks tied to the summary task, this phase. And then after that, the decimal, it will number those subtasks in order. This is the first subtask, that's the second, and that's the third. Sweet. And of course, don't forget, if you don't want to go that far, but you do want to know that when you scroll down, which task you're looking at belongs to what project, you can always right-click and, of course, insert the project field, and it tells you these tasks all belong to Access 2010, and These ones down below are all Excel, okay? We learned that in an earlier training video. Let me go ahead and click and drag the split bar back. And let me come up here and right click on the time scale to zoom. Entire project, click Okie dokie. Now what would happen if I wanted to get the project summary report of my master here? Would it include just this subproject, that subproject? Well, remember that when you create a project, you have subtasks. Well, these subprojects are actually subtasks. So when you create a project summary report for the master, it'll include both here. As far as the dates go, because they're both starting at the same time, let's see, August 1st and up here, August 1st, it's going to show that in the project summary report. In fact, if this one started earlier, let's say, let's go way over here and say you're going to start on the 31st and click OK. Which one is it going to capture for the start date? Or will it just go ahead and capture the one that begins the earliest and then just say, okay, here's the one that ends at the latest? So in fact, let's go ahead and scroll down, click and drag this back. So the 31st, that one ends on the 23rd, and this one ends on the 1st. Let's go ahead and create that report. Come up here, click on the Project tab, go to Reports group, click on Reports, double click on Overview, Project Summary, click on it to zoom in. See, there's the 31st. So just like any project, the first task that starts is where it begins, and it was in that subproject access. And then let's see, when it ends, it would be the last task in the second subproject on October the 1st. And then the cost that we're getting down below, let me click out and click on to zoom in, is $1,500. That's adding up both costs within the project at this time. So if I come up here and click on the File tab and I do something fun, let me go ahead and scroll up and I say, hey, I got an idea. How about when we finish this project, let's start the next one so we don't have resource conflicts here. Well, remember what you do in here, if it's linked, it's going to update the original file. So if I come over here and I click and drag that milestone and connect it to that one, and it pushes it out. Let me go ahead and scroll back over here because it kind of pushed me out here. And you can see we start up at the top, the 31st, we scroll down, we get to the next one. So when it ends on the 23rd, this one can begin on the 23rd. So when I come back up here and click on the Reports, Overview, Project Summary, click on it to zoom in, there's the 31st it begins. And instead of ending on October the 1st, because these two projects are now linked, it actually pushes out the end date for the master. And not only that, but let me go ahead and click on the File tab. If I go back to the Exercises folder and open up Excel, which Excel, as you can see down below, got pushed out to the 23rd. Double click what you do in one, does it into the other here. And notice how this one is faded in the original file. That's coming from the master. So when the manual has been completed, for what? It doesn't say here, but when it's completed from another sub-project that you don't know, because let's say that you don't own the master, you're just working in your original file. Anytime you see this, somebody else has linked up to you and put you in the master and set it up that says, okay, when one project completes, and you can see manual complete, you're going to begin. And when is it going to begin? On the 23rd. And the predecessor is, oh, that's interesting, that you can see up here in the entry bar that it's going to be Access 2010. So what you do in the master will reflect in the sub-projects here in the sub-project's original file. So yes, if you're trying to hide this from the project manager of this original file, if they watch my training videos and they see something faded here and they see in the predecessor file, they'll be able to figure it out, especially if they come in their start date, which used to be on August the 1st, is now changed. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.